Kirk, 6:31.
Okay. Should we get started on the meeting? Let's see. Does anybody want to lead the Pledge of Allegiance?
We have a flag. Oh, we got a flag. I will.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll call the meeting to order. This is the Planning Board meeting for Nottingham. It's Wednesday, June 25th, 2025 at 6:30. We're in the town office meeting room. Before I ask people to introduce themselves, I don't think we did this before, but it's probably a good idea since this is a new room. Emergency exits, if there is an emergency, there are exit signs up. I would not implore people to use this one. There's a lot of stuff behind it, so if there is an emergency, exit that door and go either left or right. Just want to let people know. I'll just go around the room and have people introduce themselves. Start with Skip.
Skip Severance, alternate.
Danny Arsenal, member.
Chris Evans, member.
Drew Stevens, Vice Chair.
Dirk Rotenheist, Chair.
Larry Haney, SRPC.
And I know Adam had indicated he wasn't going to make it. I don't know if anybody heard from Glenn.
He said he'll be here, but he'll be here a little late.
Okay, then I'll see Skip for Adam. And if we can first just take a look at the meeting minutes from 6:11. Those are at the back of our folders. No, they're not.
Oh, not.
Okay, well, we can,
There's a yellow tab for it, though.
Got sidewalk minutes, but
We did have some. Oh, no.
we can
shall we table?
push, yeah, let's just table those to the next meeting.
Okay.
I have one here. I think we're mailed.
I did see them too, but they're not in here. We have the planning board site walk for Channel Lane Street Road.
It's street, right? It is street, okay, well,
We can do
there's
that when the case comes up.
there's an edit, right? Has the case been changed to also reflect that? Because in our minutes here, it says case number 25008, sub 7025 LLC, Channel Lane.
This is Channel Street.
But then it says Channel Lane in the
On
middle.
our sidewalk minutes, so I think that's at least one edit is to change that to lane, or street. Oh my gosh.
We can do that when we open the case, though.
Now I'm talking about the sidewalk minutes.
I
I
know,
think
I
on the
know.
case, right, it's,
When we open the thing, we can do that, I think. That's just me speaking from way in the corner.
Quiet that shut down.
I don't want to go out of order.
A little loud over there.
All right, so do we want to correct the minutes and discuss that, or are we?
The case is being posted as Channel Street on the agenda. So I would follow that.
Yep, we'll just follow the street. We can discuss the site walk and stuff when we open the case. So as far as these minutes go, I guess since it's related to the case, we'll just wait and we can talk about these minutes too, as a part of that.
Hey,
Glenn?
So we've tabled the minutes for 6:11. We'll hear the sidewalk minutes when we open the case for Channel Street. And I'm not sure, let me just ask people, on the board. We rearranged the agenda, and for the life of me, I can't remember if that was something I asked Alana to do, or it was done. So we've got the select board, the member updates. We have other business before the public hearings. is that what we'd like to do, or should we move those to the end?
I
or-
think we did that because the meetings were at 7, that we noticed the people, so we came in at 6:30, so we said, well, we've got to kill a half hour. So we stuck that in there for a couple of meetings, but now that we're on this agenda, we should flip-flop
Yeah.
back.
Does that make sense to people, or do they like it at the beginning?
I think it makes sense to do the approval of minutes at the beginning of the meetings, just because when meetings tend to run long, those tend to get
Yeah.
just punted. But I'd be fine moving the select board and committee, board member updates and other business after public hearings and before public comment.
Okay.
I agree.
Did you say before public comment?
Yeah, and right as I said that, I was like, does that make sense, or should we have public comment first?
Yeah, I think before adjourn. Adjourn, do that.
So we'll have public comment prior to select board updates and other business.
That sounds good, yep.
All right. Yeah, Chris, now I do remember that we talked about filling that half hour. for
Yeah,
that
filling the half hour
for that
before.
meeting or
'cause
so,
the
but now we're.
People were on notice for 7, so that shouldn't happen any further at this point where we have a 6:30 schedule,
Yep.
in theory.
So that's the order we'll go in tonight. So, first off, I guess we then would go to public hearings.
Yep.
We're too loud for you, that's fine.
Skip shirt, it's too loud.
Okay, so public hearings, case 25-006 SUB Ernsthoff, 35 Deerfield Road. The applicant did submit that they would like this to be continued to the next meeting. They did receive CMA's review comments and just wanted a little more time to respond to those. So I would entertain a motion to
I'll
continue that.
move to continue that case till July 23rd as requested by the applicant
I'll
at
second that.
6:30.
I'll second that.
Okay, second by Drew. All those in favor indicate aye.
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 Those opposed? Ayes have that. So that will be, did you say the date?
I did, 23rd at 6:30.
Oh, they wrote it in there
In time.
for you. Good.
Do we need to unappoint Skip now?
He was seated for Adam.
I'm for Adam.
Oh,
Yeah, I seated him for
Can't be Glenn.
That would cause all sorts of problems.
all right, I'm confused. All right, got it.
So then the next case is case 25-008 SUB 70-25 LLC, Channel Street. And this is a continuation of the previous meeting from 6:25. No, from
6:11.
6:11 that had a public site walk on 6:18. 6:25 's in there.
Also says in the description that the property is located on Channel Lane in Nottingham.
Okay. So, that is street. All
Gary
right.
Bassett, 101 Shore Drive, owner of LLC 75-25 on Channel Street. And thank you, board members, for the site walk 1 week ago.
Jason Franklin from Franklin Barra Associates.
And I see that in the unofficial minutes, site walk, Drew was there, John Decker was there, Board of Select Representative Adam Ryan, his member Glenn was there, and Skip was there. Does the board want to just mention what took place? Any specific things about the site walk, other than what was in the minutes?
Pretty
Minutes look
straightforward, the
good.
minutes, yeah. We went up the first driveway, looked at the proposed building area. We were shown where the test pits were taken, answered, they answered some questions that the board members had. Walked down back to Channel Street and then up to the second driveway. Went up that, saw the second proposed building area and the 2 test pits that were taken there, and answered a few remaining questions, and that was that. Pretty straightforward.
Great. And does the applicant have any communication or discussion about the site walk that they would like to present?
No, I mean, I think it went well. I think having the board be able to see the site and what we're looking at as opposed to being on paper really helped. It gave them a better scope of what we're trying to accomplish. Other than that, it's fairly straightforward. I think I answered a bunch of questions, but I don't have anything outstanding or any more comments that I think need to be answered.
Okay.
If you guys have additional questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them tonight.
I do notice in our file that we did receive the test bits for that. Just find the minutes.
And Kevin, I did go up there earlier today, in case you have cameras or something waved.
No cameras for you, Chris.
Okay, you break them.
Did you split some wood while you were there?
I took the four-wheeler and tooled around and, yeah, checked out the Quonset hut, the airplane hangar up there.
So we have a set of documents in front of us now. Are these updated in any way, or are they the same ones?
Same ones. I have not updated anything from last week. I want to make sure you guys, I don't want to have any confusion about what you guys have. So we made no case. I do know we have a revision of Channel Lane on the plan, we changed to Channel Street. I think that was about it, unless the board can entertain any other changes or requests for minutes.
Okay. No, I'm not sure.
You want a motion for the sidewalk minutes, by the way?
It says unofficial.
I think that's what you normally put, that's what I was asking.
As a draft, yeah.
Okay.
Usually.
Yeah, because they have to post them within 5 days,
Ah.
the raw ones, so people can see, but they don't get adopted within 5 days. Something has to be posted.
Sure, let's just take a look at it and make sure that we change this lane to street.
Yep, there's one
Those-
other in the italicized portion there, that again says Channel Lane, so that
And
ought to
then-
be changed to Channel Street.
Yep.
I'll make a motion as corrected.
Second.
So, motion and second. Any discussion? Those in favor indicate aye. Those opposed? Good with those, all right. They are official. Once we change lane to street. Thank you. And I guess I'd turn to the applicant too, to see if there's if there's anything else you wanted to mention to the board before we kind of talk amongst us.
I think we've been over this project quite a bit. I really don't have anything to add that hasn't been said. I think we explained everything pretty well. The site walk further clarified out the questions you guys had. I can't think of anything to add.
Okay, great. Bring it back to the board for discussion on this. Were people fairly, sounds like pretty
I just have
comfortable with the
a
sidewalk?
dumb question, but Glenn could probably answer this straight out. Glenn, you mentioned, people own to the center line of a road, in this case where they own both sides, but does the deed reflect to the edge of the easement or to the center line? What happens with that?
It depends.
Okay,
As far as this goes, I don't know, it's how they decide to write the deed description, but even in cases where the verbiage in the deed indicates a long road, the presumption is to the center line.
okay.
And speaking of the road, one thing that I will note is that while we were out on the site walk, I did some, just casual measurement and, yeah. And in several places, the width of the gravel was more than 25 feet. And my concerns about the right-of-way. Obviously, the selectmen decided what they did, but what I would like to ask for as part of this is a drainage and maintenance agreement with Mr. Bassett, and have that recorded as part of the subdivision process so that, in case someone comes along later, they can't come after the town for damages if trees need to be moved, ditches need to be maintained, whatever.
Who would be responsible for any of that easement? If the town has something, if you, as a planning board, has something specific in mind, if you have a draft easement, you have, like Kevin, to take a look at it, I think that would be appropriate. Ultimately, Kevin's the landowner. These surveys were done 2 or 3 years ago, 2023, I think, so the town's been out there and they have been expanding the gravel edges from what was surveyed years ago. So I did note that, they're definitely wider than what we show on the plan, but
Right.
It's been a couple of years, and obviously there's been some trees removed, there's been some ledges put back, and you can see the areas that have been worked on. As far as the easement goes, like I said, it's up to Kevin if you'd entertain a drainage maintenance easement or drainage ditch easement. We'd have to get some kind of guidance from the town about location, how width, what you're looking for. We could certainly add that potentially to the condition of the approval.
Yeah, and, we also would need to, consult with, town officials and board of selectmen just to make sure that how that can get applied, and some of the language specific, because it would be for the town forces to be able to go do those drainage improvements if needed. So we would have to kind of work that language out.
And if that's the case, we should put a time limit on it. This has been dragging on for quite a few years, it's long past, this should have been done, put to bed a long time ago. And I know it's unusual, we're all trying to work together, so that would be good. But yeah, I think a blanket drainage easement, maintenance easement is not gonna work. We'd have to have some specifics that the town's looking for.
Okay.
Are you looking for a 1/2 of the road kind of onto those 2 lots being subdivided, or?
Yeah, I'm not worried about what's happening on the other side of the road right at this point. I think that's outside of the purview of this application. I'm talking about just these 2 lots.
So what happens in the future? The reason being, so these roads were all accepted, right? We've beaten this horse, but these roads were all accepted. And the only one the town is kind of addressing now is Chandler Street, but we still have Indian Run, still Lamprey, as well as additional roads and other sections that are not being addressed. Is it the town's position they're gonna wait to address these road issues when the time comes?
It seems like
Kicking it down the curb.
certainly seems like that's what the select board did.
Okay.
And realistically, this wouldn't have come up if you didn't subdivide that particular lot. It's a subdivision process that kind of.
It shouldn't have been. It should have been the select board. I mean, these roads were accepted by the town. The
Well,
town,
but that's not the road. It's once, they do the road. But if you want to subdivide on the road, then there are requirements that kind of exist, and the
It's a
50-foot
gray
right-of-way
area.
and that kind of stuff. Kind of comes into play. It gets dicey, I will say
it's
that, but.
definitely dicey, because these roads weren't really town roads until a few years ago. And when this happened, this all subdivided. But, if you go to Jebig Road, which has already got an established width, in some cases that I have seen towns request drainage easements, maintenance easements outside of that to subdivision. So I think that's why
Yeah.
ultimately it's up to Kevin if he's gonna accept this, and, if he wants to
We've done it in the past.
consult counsel or
And-
something, we should have a time frame to do that, as well as the town.
I'm thinking of all the roads now that exist that have come into this public domain, almost every single one of them is gonna have this problem if they
At some
subdivide.
point, yeah.
So personally, I'm kind of looking ahead to see how this plays itself out, and if the town never comes to use the easement, great, but having it there in case, I don't know, 4-story buildings get built on the side of,
Yeah.
you know, we don't know, obviously.
Yeah, road issues
We don't
across the
know.
state get kicked down the road all the time.
Yeah.
We're doing a survey in Epping where, it doesn't none of the monumentation matches the surveys. So this is an ongoing issue, not just with Nottingham in this
Yeah.
particular, but across the state. Rangeways, old roads, they just kind of get ignored or pushed to the side and,
Right.
so, yeah.
Yeah, I would like to just add to, maybe take the planning hat off and put a different hat on, and that, the Board of Selectmen in our town met specifically for this road and said that a 25-foot road is good. That's what they voted on, that's what they said. They didn't need anything more. We provided them, Glenn provided them input on those exact concerns of having drainage easements and having that they did not decide to go in that direction. So there is potential risk by them doing that. I don't know that it's borne upon the planning board to mitigate that risk any further than what the elected officials had done.
But they weren't looking at a subdivision either.
Yes, they were. I mean, they knew that this was
Nope.
being subdivided. They knew that this was being subdivided.
They may have
and the
known, but it was
concerns.
not a subdivided lot or something that was,
I
they
think
knew it
what-
was in the process of subdivision. But for them, they're just going down the route of accepting what they believe to be a roadway system that goes through this property. The planning board, it wouldn't have come to us.
Yeah, without the subdivision, I understand that and agree with that.
And so that's when it kind of gets into that zone. And if, for me, looking in the future, looking at some of the things that could happen, a decision here not to create an easement might get used against us at some other roadway system where it would definitely be necessary.
But it is kind of a case-by-case scenario that we do look at through all of these subdivisions.
Yeah, but if you don't
Whether
have-
there's a drainage issue,
Right.
we have topography, we have a site walk that happened.
Yeah.
If we see major drainage issues, we ask the applicant to address them.
Yep.
We've done this now and had a site walk, and I don't know, it hasn't been come to, I didn't do the site walk, but I don't know that there's drainage issues out there that we could identify and say, here, we need an easement for here in the future. Because that's what we would need to do for this applicant and say, we need it, here and here and here. I don't know, we know that specifically.
Skip, I kind of agree with that, these are, not high-density proposals. I mean, if you had
Right.
17 lots with a lot more impervious and drainage and driveways and things, then, maybe, when Kevin comes back and says, hey, my kids just had 6 grandkids, six tuplets, could happen. Six. And he needs to. 11. He needs to chop up some more lots, then, maybe, that gets looked at that time.
And that's a true statement, but
Yeah.
the reality is if you don't look at it now,
Yeah,
you almost can't look at it then. So you gotta kind of think in the future and say,
Yeah.
does this make sense at this point in time to set aside, we're not taking land, but the document that creates the easement would at least allow the capability for that to be investigated, I guess is the way to put it.
So the way that I would look at it is what we're looking at doing is just saying, look, we understand that we may have issues in the future along this section of road. We want to be able to address them without having to, ask permission for every single thing that needs to be done for the maintenance and upkeep of the road. We're just trying to kind of get out in front of that and make sure that it is documented, so we don't have somebody come back and say, hey, you know, the town cut down my favorite tree, you owe me $20,000. You know, that's kind of where I'm leaning towards.
How does that issue get addressed now? So if you have a road that's two rods, right, and you have drainage issues, you have a tree falls over that's onto private property or from private property onto the road or vice versa, how does that get addressed now? How does the town address work on private property outside the easement when it's, you know, if you have a washout for Santa Culvert? Is there emergency provisions? I mean, not being a road agent, I've never dealt with that issue before. So how does the town deal with those now? Is it something that you can apply to this issue?
If there was pavement, it's usually 2 feet back from the pavement.
If
Safety.
the culvert washes out, extend, we
Yeah.
all know they go well beyond the edge of the pavement sometimes. I mean, we've seen washout extend past the road right of ways. The town comes in, they muck everything out, dig it out, they're definitely encroaching onto other people's property, maybe not here specifically, but it happens.
Yep.
How does the town, you know, again, these are all issues that I'm aware of you guys want to take care of and clear up, but is that something that we can, you know, kick the can down the road, I guess. So, but if, you know, if you have provisions in place to do that now, why not employ them here? Especially when the selectmen have already accepted this roadway. And Kevin's already granting a 25-foot easement across the road to then give him an additional, you know, give the town additional maintenance easements, so 2 additional easements.
And that's the question I have. This is the proposed culvert easement would be beyond the 25-foot, right?
Right.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, in some places the gravel is now expanded
I mean,
outside.
Yeah.
That you can do it like an agreement as opposed to an easement, so the understanding is that it's not a specific distance, it's just to do certain work. There's,
Right, yeah.
there's an implied condition,
already-
maybe like a notice
And
that.
honestly, they've already done that, Blair. And it's far beyond 25 feet. They've made cuts on part of the road, especially on the other side than the subdivision. There's 2 or 3 cuts that go well beyond
Yeah.
25 foot.
Yeah, I'm
So-
leery about blanket easements because
Right,
technically it's
and
a
I'm good with
taking.
that.
Right.
But
But
how do we address it now?
Like I
correct.
said, an agreement versus an easement.
Gray area, right? An agreement of after use can become an easement. Same, you know, right of ways and easements are the same, they're different, but they can also be the same. So this is a very, it's a
I mean,
sticky subject. Glenn knows.
there's-
Easements and
well,
right of ways.
Yeah, I was gonna say, with where the town has already maintained beyond that 25 feet, there's a possibility of prescriptive easements there.
Correct. But wasn't that the town maintaining these roads prior to the vote anyways? Weren't they
Which is
plowing?
what caused the vote to
So
happen in
what
the first
happened
place, so.
10 years ago when a tree fell or a washout happened? The town came in and just did it. Did they, I mean,
Mhm.
I see you guys are trying to head this off, but it also seems like you're really negatively impacting Kevin here. He's already been gracious enough to kind of give up his, you know, land for the town. It was voted. It's kind of a taking. Yeah, again, I think if you had language that we could see what you're looking for in the easement or how you wanted to come to an agreement, it would be beneficial. But, you know, these meetings are stretching on quite a long time. I think this is stuff that should have been done a while ago, quite
Mhm.
frankly. You know.
Not to totally change subjects, but I know the road agent did indicate the potential for some culverts at the driveways.
I thought there was no road agent comments, at least the.
I thought I saw that with the, or maybe I'm mixing these up.
Deerfield
Maybe I'm
Road
mixing
one,
them
I
up.
think.
Sorry.
There was no comments
Never
about
mind.
this for the fire chief or the road agent.
For Channel Street, Mr. Rollins had coordinated with Kevin Bassett regarding the removal of tree stumps left from recent utility pole and installation work. He also notes that ditching and culverts will be necessary for any new driveway accesses. The installation and maintenance of these features should be the responsibility of the property owners, not the town. Additionally, ledge removal will be required along portions of the existing roadway. This will be handled as part of routine road maintenance.
So I am not privy to any conversations Kevin's had with the road agent, so I don't know, I don't know if you have a formal agreement with the town for maintenance over these, or if you just kind of, you know, you live here, you kind of allow the town to do whatever. I don't know how that works. Give some insight.
The conversation with the road agent is that he asked if I could cut the stumps down prior to this past winter's plowing, and we did that. And shortly there, before and after we did that, he come in and removed the stumps and started moving rocks out of the road, hammering them, and moving ledge back, and to the point that you guys saw it here. So, and I haven't talked to him since. It's all good. It's all in the same frame of improving the road for plowing and et cetera. So I was good with it. That's the only conversation.
So in that case, the road agent contacted you to determine if he could do that there. Is that what it was?
Yeah, we met on the first driveway at one point, because I asked him to come out
Okay.
to see what he wanted to do, and that's what he suggested, cut the stumps down. We got all but one, I think, and then he started pulling the stumps. So I said, oh, this is great, widening the road to make it better for plowing.
So Kevin, as a landowner here, then would you be willing to grant the town, work with the town to work a language for an easement or maintenance agreement, as opposed to maybe an easement, so a maintenance agreement to extend a certain width or distance past the edge of the road right away?
Along the cuts that he's already done, certainly, as long as it doesn't hold us up tonight,
Well, I think that's, it's
because
looking
we're
that
gonna
way.
hold up again,
It's looking that way.
and again. So,
Because we don't know where these cuts happened here, so we can't.
yeah, so,
So, if I may, what I'm looking for, you know, to, like you say, protect the town, is just formalizing that agreement that, you know, hey, all we're doing is maintaining the road, we're just, you know, making it a little bit easier to plow, we're taking care of, you know, branches or drainage or rocks or whatever, or, you know, getting rid of the stumps, like you say, and just making it so that it's a formal recorded document rather than just a handshake.
can we
You know.
do that through the minutes?
No,
Of this?
I would think that would have to be something that would be drafted up by a lawyer and recorded.
Ouch.
I mean, I've seen them as one-page documents.
Yeah.
You know, it's, again, an agreement, not an easement.
Correct.
So, you know, I could even put something together based on things that I've seen, cobble it together, and just send it off to you and Ellen. If it's acceptable, then it's acceptable. If it's not, then it's not. But,
All's in your court, Kevin, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think if it's in that realm and not, you know, a recorded easement on a plan.
Yeah.
You know, that there's, because right now, that's gonna be the situation with all landowners that have these roads anyway. And I don't know why the town doesn't have something like that already for anything, because they're gonna going in there on private property and, or now, I don't know what it is yet. They're going in there and they're plowing it, they're doing maintenance, and there's no written agreement at all. That sounds like.
If I may, a lot of private roads, we have a house, you know, HOA, they have maintenance agreements, right? We've done several subdivisions in Deerfield.
Yeah.
On small private roads, and even it was, one specific was a father-daughter, they entered into a maintenance agreement, and it was recorded, but it's not, or an agreement as opposed to an easement. The town was completely in agreement, I think that would be a good workaround.
That's the kind of thing that,
So come with a formal maintenance agreement, who's responsible for what, when, generalized, of course, and then maybe get that recorded as part of the conditional approval, as part of the final plat. I
Yeah.
think that would be sufficient, maybe a good compromise.
yeah.
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Blair, if you would draft something like that, that would be great.
So for clarity, I'm just, it's kind of three things going back and forth here, at least. Is this easement also having Kevin give permission to the town to go on what is his land, he owns that road, and maintain it, even
So,
beyond the town vote? Just, is that what this is?
Yeah, no, it's, so the maintenance agreement would not be an easement. It
Right.
would just be a written legal document saying that, you know, who's responsible for what, right? And then Kevin and the town could come to an agreement, you know, based on Blair's write-up or draft document, and they could both sign it, then it gets recorded. You know, we can even, you know, maybe, I don't know, make note of it on the plan. And basically, it's just an agreement, who's responsible to maintain what.
It's also, you know, who's responsible, but it also kind of gives some permission for the town to go, like, if they have to move a skid steer and it goes onto his land, right? Like, you don't want to have, the next person.
Well, it's
might-
on his land. If it's on the road, it's on his land.
But that, they're already covered for that 25 feet.
right.
Easement.
So what it's saying is that,
Beyond that.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
if something's still in the 25 easement, but it requires a human being or a piece of machinery to swing around onto his land, it's allowed. For the purposes of maintenance, not to run a rock concert or something like that, you know.
Okay. So this is beyond the 25 feet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Or to blast out further if they so choose. I mean,
For shoulders, for cuts, or fills, or...
the
or
difficult.
like, for example, if there's, you know, some sort of monstrous storm and a huge portion of the road washes out, the town has permission to then clean that up and fix it, even if it is onto Kevin's land. That's all
And it
that
can even be
gets to.
written to say there will be notice given.
Yeah,
You know.
they
Yeah.
will notify Kevin,
Notify.
notify the
But
landowner.
it doesn't create a legal battle, again, because Kevin may not be the person 50 years from now, right?
Right,
It
exactly.
might be
Yeah.
a more ornery person, right?
Yeah.
So, it's not about today's situation, it's about that unthinkable situation down the road.
Yeah, and this agreement can run with the land, right?
Yep.
You know, private property does that all the time. You know, you have agreements and they just run with the property. So even if Kevin sells it and his son sells the property, it will run with that land.
Yeah.
Whoever's buying it will know that it's part of the property.
But as you said, Kevin still owns that road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really have an issue with what the selectmen did, because I don't know what it did, except to say that you have a plan that now indicates the road 25 feet wide. That some traveled way is 25 feet wide. And that's fine, because now it's measurable and all that kind of stuff. That, to me, that's a good
The only
thing.
reason we're doing this. is that
Kevin,
we're-
thank you for being the guinea pig to run through this gauntlet, because
I did it 2.5 years ago when I started all this. I'd be the first.
It's always the worst, yeah, the hardest.
And
So-
you've done very well on it.
So if I could reel this back, this application is a two-lot subdivision.
Correct. Yep.
So it's going to build 2 residential homes. That's what this is going to do. Do we have any other comments about this before we would entertain a motion?
I would just think to mention that Glenn read the comment from the road agent, but the road agent is the one who issues a driveway permit, we believe. So, you know, if there's a culvert or requirement, that's not on us, that's on him. Is that?
Yeah, and I think it meant new driveways. It may, I mean, the existing driveways that are out there that
Right.
you may utilize, they
Right.
they may be just fine, right?
Right.
You won't need a permit for that.
Yeah, and that will be addressed. I mean, you've got a building permit on the first lot, lot 5, and then on lot 25 doesn't have anything yet, other than just a road there, so.
So, with that said, I would try to make a motion here. That, based on our discussions and findings and beating this thing to death, on case number 25-008, subdivision 70-25 LLC, Channel Street, that we move for an approval.
Conditional approval.
Conditional approval, and that we're adding an easement for maintenance.
We're not adding
No.
an easement.
Agreement.
That
Agreement, thank you. Agreement for the future potential maintenance off of the 25-foot road. I don't know if I missed anything.
is that clear enough?
And all the
Well, we have a.
standard conditions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
standard conditions.
Nope, yes, we do. Thank you.
We received the test pit, so that, that doesn't need to be a part of the condition.
Mhm.
He sent that to us.
I know we're in the middle of a motion, but have we addressed the waivers for this? Have we acted upon those waivers at a prior meeting? I wasn't at the last one,
I
so I don't know.
don't think we have. I'm going to withdraw my motion for a moment so that we could,
Probably best to
Review
act on
that.
the waivers before
yes,
we,
go backwards,
conditionally
yes.
accept the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So waivers have been requested at this point? Is that true, Blair?
Yes.
All right, so
Yeah, if you find my memo, it's listed on there, so you can,
Yeah, I was
So-
looking for that, and I did not see that in here.
Yeah.
Right after this.
it's a little bit easier.
the two waivers, which are section 16.3.2.k, wetland delineation, and section 16.3.2.g, soils, waiving the soil information on the
Thank you.
plan due to the lot sizes. Those are the two waivers that are before the board.
Correct.
And I will make a motion to accept both of the waivers as written.
I'll second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. Those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? None? So those waivers are approved. And so I would look to a motion that has the conditions that plan copies with professional seals and signatures for surveyor and wetland scientists are on it. Original Mylars with professional seals and signatures are provided. Electronic submission per regulations, as-built be required, and all fees be paid. The subdivision, subsurface and septic be provided.
And I think we were asking for one more monumentation, two more monumentations?
Yeah, you mentioned on the line you have to set in require every 300 feet.
Yes.
We'll do that.
Monumentation of every 300 feet in the roadway,
Not along the roadway.
sorry,
Yeah, it's
Just on
So
the, just on the
in between the two
dividing
lots.
line.
every 300 feet along the dividing line.
Correct, between lot 25 and 25.5.
And then a maintenance.
And that a maintenance agreement is drafted and worked out between the parties.
Yes.
I so move.
Is there a second to that motion?
I will second.
In a time frame of
Oh, for the.
30 days?
Yeah, like-
What would you put on that,
On the
so that it's
agreement,
not open-ended?
60
Let's do
days.
60 days.
Do you mind 60
Is
days?
that okay?
Yeah.
Fine.
So the
So the
agreement
Like
mo-
you
the
to
motion was
close.
with 60 days?
yes,
I want you to close on
that
that.
the maintenance agreement be agreed upon within 60 days.
I will read.
And that was a second by Glenn?
Yes.
Okay.
And Blair, you can do that?
I will initiate it.
Okay.
Yes.
Those in favor indicate aye.
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 Those opposed? So conditional approval. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for working through this process.
You're at the end of the
Very
lane.
much.
It's not a lane, it's a street. You're at the end of your street.
You know, honestly, folks, hopefully the next one, there will be a next one, goes a little bit easier for you.
Well, we have a framework now to move forward, so
We
It'll-
appreciate you working
Yeah,
with
we
us on
appreciate
this
it.
through all the bumps and, you know.
And Kevin, I'm on another road, and we had a separate selectmen meeting, because you have to travel through Raymond to get to our road, and it's messy.
I
And-
also live on one
Yeah.
of those roads.
A private road.
Yeah.
Very messy.
I bought my house on public road.
So Blair, I might see something from you in the next week or two?
Yes.
I mean, after the holiday,
I'm gonna try to get done by the end of next week. It's only a one page. I'll work from templates, so I should be able to do it fairly quickly.
My road's like.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, guys.
I'm the only house on it. Yet it's a public road, not my driveway, somehow.
At least the town gets to plow you out.
Yep, that's the one benefit. They certainly don't maintain it any other way, but. They paved the other one that was like that, so I'm fine keeping it dirt for now, so I'm not gonna make a stink about it having lots of washed out areas.
They paved an adjacent road up there?
Yeah, Little John got paved a couple years back after it was accepted as a public road, so now people speed down that one instead of mine.
I didn't think the town was gonna be like plowing any of these roads any,
That's why they were
or,
accepted as
or-
public roads,
or
'cause
paving, I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, they paved that one, probably because it was steep and difficult. It got washed out a lot worse than mine did.
Yeah, well, maybe
I
that
say mine,
saves,
but ours, because it's a public road.
eventually saves time or money, perhaps.
All right,
Oh,
well, we're moving along. Big sigh after that one. All right, so we've got now the select board, committee, staff, board member updates. Again, I'll just go around the room. I'll start with Skip, if you got any updates or information you want to share with the planning board. Whoa, sorry. Public comments first.
I'll get the door.
Crickets.
This is the time when public can come, ask any questions of the planning board.
Someone's yelling at their TV right now. Thank you, planning board!
You can also write your comments to us as well. if you-
Email 'em
You
to
don't
us.
have to come in person.
We'll read them to you.
We will.
All right, seeing that there is no public here, go ahead, Skip, with your update.
Some of us on the board went to the public facilities assessment training that Blair
Yeah,
presented, and it was pretty good. Most of us were like CIP-related people. I'm not sure it was really CIP-related, but it gave a good understanding as to what public buildings could become without necessarily tearing them down and still being productive and that kind of stuff. You hear the word grants a lot these days, and it seems like that's about the only way to do that, but anyway. It was pretty good training. The donuts and stuff were pretty good.
Paid for by grants.
Huh?
Paid for by grants.
I don't know. I don't know where they came from.
Grant
They were
donuts.
pretty good.
Tastes extra.
And at the end of the meeting, when it was supposed to end, his dog barked and told him it was time.
Nice.
Good trained dog.
He's
Not-
brought that dog on sidewalks before.
Not that
and
we
it is
saw the
cute.
dog. I mean, it could have been just a thing on his phone. I don't know.
it's locked in the closet somewhere.
Ending app, it's just their phone starts barking. That actually would probably be very effective.
And it was an interesting place where it is. The school,
Where our
the
offices are.
school building that was never a school kind of thing and became office space behind Spalding High School. So, always wondering what the deal was with that, but they have a portion of it. Pretty good.
So Blair and Skip, both, now that you have this superior knowledge of all things pertaining to town buildings, it seems to me that in our planning board, that we might make recommendations for uses of town buildings and things like this in the town. And, you know, we look at this town, as we're doing the master plan, we look at this town center concept and what was meant by that 10 years ago when they made this town center. Did they want to have a coffee shop or donut shop or ice cream shop or?
14 years ago.
Huh?
14 years ago. It's 2011.
Yeah, so many moons ago. And are those still valid or ideas? So, I mean, what do you have any visions for like across from, like, there's an old fire station, there's another building and then a church looking building there?
Grange Hall, yeah,
It's the Grange Hall.
What are,
the
what,
old town offices.
so I was not aware that the building pictured on the Nottingham Square in the end, the old schoolhouse, was still being used until they went over there and shot some guns and did the alarm call or whatever they call it, the Paul Revere ride thing. But are those,
Pillsbury pancake breakfast.
yeah, so are those buildings all used? I know SAU was in one of them and they rented out the fire department to a septic pumper
Yeah.
company. What about the other building? What can be done with that to generate income or use for the town?
As in most cases, a lot of these old buildings are not even close to being up to code. So,
Okay,
the town's practice, I think, realistically, has been to do what they can on the outside to preserve it as long as possible. Not saying that's effective or worthwhile or anything. The Grange Hall is kind of a neat place when you go in it, but there's no bathrooms, there's no running water, there's not a whole lot there. It's just a
There's no
building.
electricity either, right?
No electricity,
Yeah.
extension cords.
They used to.
That would. Yeah,
They used to.
At our master plan subcommittee meeting, Mary said that there's not electricity in it anymore either, so.
I'm remembering, a while back. Well, I was gonna say, Boy Scout meetings
Oh,
in there. And there was power in there at that point, but that was
may have been.
My
late
Hamster on
80s,
the-
early 90s. So, yeah, a few years ago.
Yeah, Harvest Suppers used to run several extension cords from the
Town hall.
town hall, yeah, good way to put it. And then they started using a generator because it was better, but noisy as hell. But anyway, yeah,
so could that be like leased out for a short amount so that somebody could come in and improve it and put a coffee shop there?
as with most of our buildings, there's pretty much zero parking. So you have to kind of be aware of that situation. It's also on a hill, so there isn't even any real good, there isn't necessarily an easy way to get handicapped accessibility and some of that kind of stuff. There's a lot of concerns with that. But that doesn't mean it's not a good historic structure that could be utilized in its normal sense right now as, I don't know, a museum or something, but I mean, most of the museum stuff now need to be, heated and that kind of stuff, so.
And we have a museum right out here.
Oh, yeah, 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 you got a lot of stuff in there.
Certainly part of the master plan, and I think there are action items that will come out of the master plan too.
Yeah. The town center, when that concept was created, it was, there was previously a zone that was there, but it wasn't considered a town center type zone. It was just considered, it wasn't even as fabulous as commercial. It was just it existed as a place where businesses could exist, essentially. So the town center concept would conjure up the concept of a typical New England town center being created around that, around Bascom Farm and, all that kind of stuff. Maybe that would, bed and breakfast, or, I don't know what people would conjure up for that, but.
It's interesting that you mentioned bed and breakfast because we were discussing at the master plan subcommittee meeting last night that we're not sure that our zoning even specifies that something like a bed and breakfast or a motel would be an acceptable use along Route 4 or anywhere else in our zoning.
It does not.
And, it's the same thing that the Nottingham Business Park having to go get a variance
Yeah.
just to do warehousing, which is kind of obviously a commercial activity. And so that's definitely something that we need to, because, if somebody, I think Blair made the point that if, there's somebody looking to build a bed and breakfast or a motel or something like that along Route 4, they see a piece of property that's available, they look at our zoning, don't see it there, they're not going to go before the board and try to get, they're just going to go on to the next property in the next town, you know, type of thing that does have zoning that accommodates that, so they don't have to go through the rigmarole.
There's pluses and minuses to that,
Sure.
you know?
Sure.
If you really want to have a bed and breakfast at that thing, you'll go through whatever hoops you need to go through to do it. So, it's all really difficult. That list that's there is very old.
Yeah.
I don't
And I
remember us
definitely-
changing anything on it.
I definitely think that, you know, updating some of the zoning specifically to add things that were not even thought of 20 years ago, like Airbnbs. You know, how do we want to regulate those? Me personally, I'd love to see every single one of them shut down, but that's just me. And I know that that's not a very popular opinion. But I think that regulating them in some form or fashion is necessary. Again, you know, should it be allowed in residential areas? Do we allow it only in certain areas of the town? So on and so forth.
So now that
All
the-
valid questions.
Yeah, now that the state's allowing detached ADUs, it's gonna be potentially
Even more
even
so.
more of a thing.
Yeah.
'Cause you don't have to build an ADU for a family member, you could build an ADU because you want more income as a rental property, which is totally valid, but that's something that we definitely should think about and try to get ahead of.
Yep. I don't know if, there's a lot of,
That's
there's
as,
a lot of things that.
that's as far as we can go tonight.
Yeah.
Is that what you're gonna say?
Yeah, no, it's just you brought this up, and I was just curious about these buildings, and, you know, it's about income and expenses, is the town, how the town it's a business. Tax dollars, and here's the expenses, and they're gonna keep going up, and how do we bring in more tax dollars? Is there ways to bring in tax dollars, expand our commercial, you know, expand housing, expand our downtown center, is some of the things we're thinking about in this master plan, and or I'm thinking about, you know, and, so you brought that up, so I was just curious about how that, you know.
The area that you, that's, you know, the sign is there for Nottingham Square. Is that where you're talking about the Grange is and the old
No,
fire?
No, right across the street from the library.
right down here.
Oh, right down here? Oh, I
Yeah.
don't even know. what
Those
it is.
three.
So there's like a white garage, like Ford garage, it used to be the old fire station with the ramp up, and then a building in the back, and then a church-looking building, which you drive past and not see it.
And that's all part of that town center?
Yep,
Yeah.
it's the center of town.
Yeah.
Well, because you have a
Police station
town
used to be
center
there.
that's labeled Nottingham Town Center. But
That's
not.
Nottingham Square.
No, that's Nottingham Square.
Oh,
That's a
Nottingham.
historic,
So this was interesting when we were talking about in our master plan subcommittee, you know, you may have brought it up as, you know, where do you think our town center is? Or village, we were talking about villages, and where would a good village be? And I'm thinking, you know, we've got Devon Store, we've got here, and we've got Nottingham Square. And there's 3 different places within the town that,
There's actually 5.
okay,
Yeah.
all right, where else? You tell me.
What was the first one that you listed, though?
Devon Store.
Devon Store.
Where's that?
Over at the end of Jabig and Lucas
On the way-
Pond Road.
152 north up towards Route 4.
Is that the old post office?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or the second?
The West Nottingham
West-
Post Office.
West
Second.
Nottingham.
West
that's
Nottingham.
right. Then you have North Nottingham, which is Liberty Baptist Church with the corner of
Freeman Hall and Kennard?
Kennard Road,
Yep.
Garland Road, and then one back from that, because there was a river that went through there. Priest Road and Freeman Hall Road. And then there was more down here, but, I mean, I don't know. And the town square is basically from the old maps. The June 22nd, 1722 arena. But in those kind of days when they came up with these things, I don't understand why they put roads right through the center of the square. It did, it kind of busted it all up. Usually they went around and that kind of stuff, but that was the way they did this one.
Yeah.
And then both of those roads on flat look like they would be straight roads and lots, all the way down. And they got bigger and bigger as you went out. It's really kind of neat the way they did it.
Yeah.
They just picked the top of a mountain
Yeah.
and didn't go well after that.
I mean, part of it had to do with the fort that was right up there too,
Yeah,
so.
yeah. So what was a square ended up being 4 squares. I don't know. Anyway.
Danny, do you have any updates?
No updates.
Chris?
On the master plan, Blair said there were some surveys sent in, but that we're closing the master plan surveys down for anybody in the public world. Want to do your survey for the master plan, that would be great.
July 10th is the last day.
So, and we should all push any, or request any people we know maybe to do those, and we'll reach out.
Do you know how many, just,
As of last night,
Average.
it jumped up to 120. So we were at 70 for like a week, and then it just popped. I think somebody put it on Facebook, and I put it in the SRPC newsletter. Between those two, and maybe some other word of mouth, but
I took it like 20 times myself.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, it's not.
who did that?
This is not a scientific survey. I think you can do that.
Very skewed.
No, that,
All the way down.
that's it, and, I'm glad we're talking about, maybe there should be zoning updates or changes, and, we start talking about that now in July, and for 3 months before we have to actually start formalizing those, and, it's good, so pick up little pieces and parts of that, things that need to be changed or updated, or, I found my two-family glitch, I got a building permit today.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and which was just bad verbiage and writing in the just unclear.
Leftover verbiage. Back
Yeah.
in the days when you couldn't search.
Check.
Drew, do you have anything?
Only update from me is the intern that we have on the Conservation Commission, funded by the NHACC, the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions. I have currently tasked that intern with going through our previous master plan's implementation guide and looking for anything that requires updating ordinances. Most of those are in the Natural Resources chapter and the Land Use chapter, so it pertains to the stuff that he's doing. But he's going to go through all of it and then go back through our town reports from 2011 to current and see what warrant articles were put forth to maybe check some of those boxes so that we can start to figure out what's been done and what hasn't, to know what's left or what we might want to change.
And if you're coming up with any ideas as to what new implementation ideas would be, let us know so we can start working.
Yeah, well, there'll be an action item list off of this master plan update, and
And something that was also mentioned, in addition to that, is this board should form an implementation subcommittee to have people kind of driving that forward. That might not be the people on the master plan subcommittee, but keeping those in mind so that, this board often doesn't really have the time to, especially when cases are busy and all that. It usually gets towards, warrant article time, and then we're scrambling to figure out what we want to do. So having an implementation subcommittee, to kind of work on that stuff is something that I think the master plan subcommittee is going to recommend in addition to everything else to keep that going.
You looking at the alternate to do that for you?
I know, I keep looking at you, but
Shirt, you can't
It's
look
a
away.
shirt.
it's a shirt. Just can't look away.
I can't unsee it.
One thing, to this point, and this came up, CMA was reviewing Deerfield, but unspecific to that, and more about our regulations, he pointed out that, we have a table in our subdivision regulations, table 1, that's road and driveway design construction standards, and he said that, right now, they don't even meet the current guidelines from the
DOT.
ASHTO.
And
Yeah.
ASHTO, yeah.
And we should really look at that, because it's not meeting what's kind of considered the sort of blueprint for that type of design standard for road and driveway. He gave an interesting example, the pavement portion of the regs, because type B and type D pavements have not been available for many years. So, there's clearly some oversights on some technical things that we should really start to look at. I even asked, because I don't know, I'm not comfortable helping you out with that one, because that will go beyond my skill set.
I'm pretty comfortable with it.
Yeah. I figured that'd be fine, but as someone that tends to drive the bus on a lot of these things, I reached out to the transportation guy in our office to see if there's a program that we work with, the UPWP, they might have somebody on contract that can help us. But if it's not necessary, then it's not necessary. But that is something we should absolutely plan to put at the top, because that does get into road design safety standards and
So
stuff.
we can reference that.
Yeah, would that be something where
Standard,
we
right?
get rid of the table and just say, it has to meet ASHTO standards?
That might be the way to do it.
Because then if
I don't know.
ASHTO updates, we don't have to,
Can-
we're not lagging behind. And
I would agree with that. I don't see there's a reason, but again,
So it's the same thing that happened with the type of asphalts, is that those were types that were standard from DOT. DOT's changed. So even if we have it, say, A and B, DOT now has a different nomenclature completely, and they updated their own, but, there's towns that haven't, like us.
I bet at one point the table was there just to help people, and now it's become a liability.
So
We should take it out just to say, reference those standards.
Yeah.
That might be the way to go. So
Yep.
Can master plan grant funds be paid out to CMA to, here's a list of things that,
Not at this point. The funding is in line with the grant with the project. So.
but
Yeah.
in there was some outreach, and then we want to look at different professionals or
Well,
groups.
if the planning board wants to hire a professional, they could, to do these things. I mean, I don't know what the budget is yet. I get with Ellen, but,
The budget's got a contract, the contract's with SRPC.
yeah.
So that can't happen with that grant funding, but you can get other grant funding. That might be able to look at it. But that might even be not necessary. If Dirk has some comfortability with looking at it, and I can work with him to handle some of the legwork, we might be able to do it in-house.
Mhm.
Well, I do, I look at CMA's comments, and, they do pick up a lot of technical stuff
Yeah.
that, is like above some of our pay grades here, or most of ours, except for Dirk and Glenn.
As far as my updates, I don't have any.
So there was a SRPC meeting last week, I believe. And I was not physically there, but I did join the Zoom meeting. There were a number of updates from them. The biggest one, which we had talked about previously, was the DOT's plan to upgrade the 152 Route 4 intersection. I brought up some comments that we had been discussing about the fact that, that's the headwaters of one of the tributaries of the Lamprey River, and that there were, significant wetlands right in that area. The DOT commissioner who was there for that was unaware of that, so they said that they would be taking a deeper look. But the current timeline on that is that they have the funding for doing the studies and everything else out to 2029 at the moment. So it's not an immediate concern, but the fact that, I had to bring up the wetlands was a little bit concerning. They did have several different proposals for what to do with that intersection, and they haven't made any sort of determination on what they're going to do yet. So they said that there will be many public meetings to come as that moves forward.
And they did come to a select board meeting not so long ago, and it was kind of interesting, actually. And they, two basic proposals were, stoplight and then a roundabout, or whatever they're called in roundabout in New Hampshire, I don't know.
Here now, yeah.
And I had just traveled to the Azores, and they have roundabouts everywhere. And I have relatives in Keene, and roundabouts everywhere. And I pulled the guy aside after the meeting. I said, "Well, you're the expert here. What do you think should be done?" And he kind of was leaning towards the roundabout thing. So we still won't have a traffic light, or Steve said, a red light district.
So, just from a planning perspective, I will note that roundabouts tend to have much fewer accidents.
Yep.
And the accidents that they do have tend not to be as bad as four-way intersections or lights. The presentation that they had, there were, I think, 4 different designs that they were kind of looking at. One included making 152 and Cooper Hill Road meet at essentially a 4-way
Yep.
perpendicular.
Good, glad to hear that.
They also had a version of that with that as a traffic circle. Though he did say that that one was kind of, iffy because of the fact that it's right at the bottom of a hill. It makes it a lot more difficult for tractor trailers and other large vehicles to
Stop.
maintain speed to get up to the top of the hill. But they said that the engineering hasn't even really started on it, so that's a future concern.
And we were sent a letter that had a number of things they would like input on too, right?
Yep.
So we should make sure that we
Yeah.
look at that. And they have a nice website that's got a whole bunch of information, including recordings of those presentations that they've given.
Oh, they have?
PowerPoints. Yeah, they do.
There was
It's-
nothing on it for a while.
Yeah, I recently sent
like-
it, the Conservation Commission met last Monday, and we had the same letter sent there. And we also tabled it to the next meeting because we wanted to go through it thoroughly and make sure that our, comments and responses, were thorough. And I found that website and forwarded it to the chair. And I'll do the same here, just so everybody gets that website and has that as a resource, because it does have a lot of info on it to look at.
And there is a business on that corner, not the bagel shop, that's northward, but the other antique store, I'm not sure what it is, but
Consignment,
that is a
yeah.
Nottingham entity. And if they do the traffic, the roundabout or the lights, then access to her place becomes somewhat difficult. She owns the whole lot, so it's not really a big deal, but you have to kind of do a donut to come back to her place. So she's looking for an exit off of the little road that goes to Cooper Hill Road. But I don't think it's gonna be too close to the intersection or the roundabout, I think, to make it worthwhile. So there's gonna be, that particular thing will be some sort of an impact. In addition, they're gonna tee into Cooper Hill Road prior to the culvert that needs to be replaced. So,
That was one thing that we talked about at the SRPC meeting, and they said that that was something that they were looking at, is where to attach to Cooper Hill Road. And they said there was a possibility that they might ignore the whole section by the mill and come down further. Even though that would make a larger wetland impact, it would also potentially make a better you know,
System.
better system. Yeah.
Blair, do you have any updates?
Just jumping on with the meeting last night with the Master Plan Subcommittee. I gave a brief update on the PREPA grant that the town received, that the town Select Board did accept the award. The town and SRPC and the town and PREP, the organization that's granting it, everyone's under contract, so all that's good to go. We'll be looking to do a kickoff meeting with Dirk, Drew, myself, Ellen, and then the PREP team, just to go over like administrative stuff. Just figure out timelines, stuff like that. So for all intents and purposes, the project is moving forward. It won't really get going in earnest until maybe August. But there are some things I'm going to get started on. I have to put together an RFQ to hire a firm to do like some LiDAR analysis and create some maps based off of that. So I've just got to put a scope together to get that out there, because that's going to take 45 to 60 days from start to finish to get that on board. But so that project's going to get going. Hopefully we can find some ways to marry it up with the housing work, so that like the analysis piece and maybe some of the like the public outreach can be done at the same time, so you have that benefit of having the two conversations at the same time.
Do those maps do the build-out analysis that was mentioned a few times in the meetings?
Sorry, say that again?
There was a mention of like a future potential build-out analysis of how many potential lots or houses or homes could be built in this town.
There is a line item in the housing plan for scenario planning. It has its limitations, but we do have it. I don't know if the plan was to do that. Given the town's like sort of really has just one zoning district, right? And, unless the town is going to start talking about separate zoning districts, and you start looking at different types of building patterns, setbacks and minimum lot sizes and stuff like that, I don't know how much benefit it's going to bring to us. So that's something that's going to be a conversation to have, maybe July, August, as we start really getting into the data and the analysis. But that's where we're at with that one. I've done this before. I did it for Barrington. And it didn't really yield anything. Because they're a little bit more complex zoning wise in this community, but it's not much. And it was just hard to really see, because it takes a lot of effort to do that.
Yeah, no, it's looked very complicated,
Yeah.
and I've seen, I've read about these analysis. I haven't seen how they're even done, and I did read a little. Mary had asked some questions about that, and I kind of said, "Oh, this is something to ask Blair, perhaps."
It's a software program, right? It's a software program that lays over top of ArcGIS, which is like your database mapping system. That woman that was here from LRAC showed us their version of using ArcGIS and how it brings to the top, things that are important to them, right? Using ArcGIS's basic maps and Granite's data information. It's the same thing. This scenario planning tool lays over ArcGIS, and you can very easily manipulate lot sizes and setbacks. Maybe it was just lot sizes and frontage or something, like you can't get into setbacks. But it doesn't take into consideration like wetlands, to the extent that if Granite has it, and Granite's very small because it hasn't been mapped, so it's usually much bigger than what Granite shows, it really doesn't give you that accurate of a depiction. If you did it in some place like Somersworth, where you look at a specific district, you could start to see some results. because it's very built out, it's very urbanized, you can start to see it, but more rural communities, it doesn't tend to be as useful as a tool. You can do it, and like I said, I'm gonna circle back to that. It is on the list of items to do, but.
That's like that 1722 map of Nottingham. Very easy to figure out,
Yeah,
just it doesn't work that way.
yeah.
Is there any movement on how the Nottingham Planning Board is gonna be under Stratford Regional Planning support,
Well,
whatever that is?
yeah, you are still a member community, but without being a dues-paying member, there's a cost impact to that. It's a 10% increase on services that we contract out with the town. You have representation, but you don't have a vote. Do you vote?
Yeah,
So you do have a vote?
Yeah.
I
Okay.
do have a vote.
All right, so you do have a vote. Maybe they get an extra vote or something. I forget what it is.
You just can't be on the directors or the
Oh, the executive committee.
executive
Yeah.
committee.
Okay, so maybe that's what it is. Yeah.
Which doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, they meet a lot. So yeah, it's stuff like that. So, but yes, you are.
Well, it just seemed like Jen was indicating there was an issue and.
I mean, it's been back and forth. Ed pushed for it real hard. You were members for like a year or two. It's kind of why you're getting those map updates that the police have been asking for, because I got that in and we did a substantial amount of work with it. But if you hadn't been members, that would not have happened. I wouldn't have been able to greenlight that. But so.
How much are the dues for the town for the year?
11, 12,000, something like
I
that.
thought it was like 6,700.
Is that what it
I
is?
thought it was pretty low, which is why it was a bit absurd that it got cut out of the budget.
I apologize, and I don't know.
Yeah, I
For
think
some reason I had,
I think it's on the order of $6,700. It's
Okay.
not
That
a
was
lot.
my understanding.
All right,
too.
my apologies.
Especially for the benefits that we'd get from SRPC
And,
if we were
yeah.
members.
but yeah, you had it, and then it got cut, I think
Right.
this last year, right?
Yep.
This last budget?
Well, maybe
2 years we have.
ago,
Yeah,
Okay, 2 years ago.
but we pushed hard again for it this last year, and it got cut out of the budget at the last minute again, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this, what I do when I come here is a totally separate contract.
Yeah, yeah.
But, so yeah, so you still have that, but.
All right, so let's, ready to kind of wrap things up?
One more quick question, sorry.
Is this a Chris quick question?
Yeah,
or
it's
an
a crit,
actual
it's
quick
a,
question?
what are we doing with, or without in the future, Alana?
Well, we need to lean on Blair a little bit.
Yeah. Thankfully, when what happened? Oh, when that gentleman that was prior to Alana, when he was here, we had a long period of nobody, and so Ed and I had to do a lot, and we were not prepared for it. We're a lot more prepared now, but they have advertised the job. It does seem like the gap in time should not be as long, but again, we're much more prepared this time.
Okay. Thank you, Blair, for all you do over there.
And it seems like Beth does a pretty good job with the minutes.
Yeah, that's a big piece. That takes a
Yeah, that's a big-
huge load off of Alana's plate.
I don't
So,
know who Beth is, but I mean, she does a hell of a job.
and the other thing too is that a while ago, Alana and I worked it out with our IT departments that all of her emails are automatically forwarded to me. I think I've mentioned this to you before, so I at least can see it as it comes in, and if I can respond to it, I will. So that does take stuff off of her plate. It also just gets through things faster. So there's already some things in play that are making this, going to make this transition a lot smoother than last.
So who's gonna send out notices and post on the website? Is that,
It'll either have to be the TA or someone they designate until the new person comes on board.
Make it the deputy town clerk.
Yeah.
It's Alana.
What a cruel move. You can run, but you can't hide, young lady.
Most of them leave town government.
We should make a
Just-
motion
just
to
kidding,
adjourn here?
Yes, thank you, Chris.
Okay.
We're adjourned.
Oh.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah,
Motion.
Seconded, thirded, fourth, and
Still
fifth.